Princess Liara stood on the balcony of her palace, her eyes scanning the glowing forests of Zephora below. The planet was alive with color. Trees shimmered with bioluminescent light, rivers sparkled like liquid crystal, and the twin moons cast silver streaks across the sky. Yet for all its beauty, Liara's heart was heavy. She carried a burden that no other princess could understand, a deep fear of humans. Her people had fought wars with them long ago, and the stories of those battles were filled with pain and loss. She had vowed, ever since she was a child, that she would never bond with a human. Her crown gleamed faintly in the light, a symbol of her royal duty and her isolation. Liara was proud, skilled, and fiercely independent. She trusted her own people, her own kind above all else. To even consider relying on a human felt like betrayal, but she was unaware that fate was about to challenge everything she had ever believed. The quiet of the evening was shattered by alarms. Red lights pulsed through the palace, and urgent messages flashed across her holographic display. A rival faction, long thought to be defeated, was attacking the palace. They had learned of Liara's unique position as the youngest and most capable heir. Her people were skilled, but the attack was swift and merciless. Liara's heart pounded. Guards ran past her, shouting orders and drawing energy weapons. "Princess Liara, you must evacuate immediately," one of them yelled. She nodded, her mind racing. Years of training had prepared her for combat, for strategy, but never for complete betrayal from within her own world. She sprinted down the palace corridors, her movements precise and practiced. She could hear the distant sounds of fighting, the hum of energy blades, the roar of engines, the panicked cries of citizens. The palace was being overrun. Liara's fingers tightened around the handle of a small, compact plasma pistol. She had always avoided killing, but she knew survival might demand more than defense. Finally, she reached the royal starship, a sleek vessel designed for speed rather than heavy battle. It was her only chance. She initiated the launch sequence, her fingers moving swiftly over the controls. The engines roared, and the ship lifted off just as enemy fighters broke through the palace perimeter. She held her breath as the planet's surface fell away beneath her, her mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. Liara's escape was not smooth. A stray blast from the enemy fighters hit the ship's hull. Alarms screamed and systems flickered. She wrestled with the controls, trying to stabilize the vessel. Sweat ran down her forehead, but she refused to give in to fear. She had survived worse training exercises, and she would survive this too. The starship broke through the atmosphere and into space, but the damage was severe. The navigation system failed, leaving her adrift in an unfamiliar sector of the galaxy. Every warning light and every flashing signal reminded her of her vulnerability. Alone in the cold vastness of space, Liara felt a pang of fear she had never allowed herself to acknowledge. She was strong, but she was not invincible. After hours of drifting, she detected a nearby space station, a neutral hub, a place where travelers of all species came and went. She plotted a course, hoping she could land without further incident. As the starship descended toward the station, another sudden jolt threw her against the seat. Sparks flew across the cockpit and the hull groaned under the stress. Liara gritted her teeth, refusing to panic. She focused on every calculation, every vector, until the ship touched down. The landing was rough, but she survived. Liara's ship barely rested before she opened the cockpit. Her body ached, her pride was bruised, and her heart raced. She knew that alone she could not repair the ship quickly enough to continue her journey. She needed help. And yet, humans were present on the station. Everywhere she looked, there were human engineers, traders, and explorers moving about. Liara's first instinct was to hide, to avoid them at all costs. Her people had taught her to distrust humans, to fear their unpredictability. But as she struggled to move, her injuries slowing her steps, she realized that survival might leave her no choice. She could not fix the ship alone, nor could she safely navigate the dangers of the station without assistance. Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice, a human voice, calm yet firm. "Hey, are you okay? You look hurt." Liara froze. The speaker, A man in a simple uniform approached with careful steps, showing no signs of hostility. His presence was both comforting and alarming. She wanted to flee, to maintain her distance, yet she could not deny her body's need for aid. "Step back," she said, her voice steady but wary. "I don't need help from a human." The man raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. "I don't care what you are. I just want to help. You can't repair a starship like this on your own." Liara's pride bristled, but her logic, trained and sharp, overruled fear. She allowed herself a cautious nod. If she could get her ship operational, she could escape and return to Zephora. The human's help was temporary. Necessary, yes, but nothing more. As the human led her to a repair bay, Liara took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. Her mind, always disciplined, began to consider the tools, the energy flows, the possible repairs. But beneath the discipline, a quiet unease stirred. She had vowed never to bond with a human, and yet for the first time she realized that survival might demand exactly what she had promised herself she would never accept. Outside the station windows, the stars, streaked by silent and indifferent, Liara felt the weight of centuries of prejudice pressing on her shoulders. But she also felt the undeniable truth. Alone, she might not survive. And in that moment, the seeds of a bond she had never imagined began to take root, one that would challenge everything she knew about humans, trust, and herself. The first step of her journey had begun. She was alive, but the path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, and full of choices she had never wanted to make. And so, with a measured but determined heart, Liara allowed herself to accept the first, reluctant aid from a human. Her survival depended on it. The hum of the repair bay was steady and comforting, a strange contrast to the chaos Liara had fled. Her starship sat before her, wires dangling, sparks flickering where systems had failed. She could feel the tension in her muscles, the soreness in her limbs, and the ache of her pride. She had survived the palace attack and a perilous landing, but she had never felt so dependent on another being, especially a human. Captain Jaren, the human who had offered help, worked efficiently, his hands steady and sure as he checked panels and circuits. His uniform bore the marks of space travel, small burns and scratches from countless repairs and missions, yet his movements were precise. Liara watched silently, her pride warring with the undeniable truth. She needed his skill. "You'll need to replace the main energy conduit," Jaren said, glancing up briefly. "It's damaged from the landing. Once we fix this, we can get your propulsion systems online." Liara stepped closer, studying the broken conduit. Her alien physiology allowed her to interface with technology in ways humans could not. But her knowledge of starship repair was limited. She realized with a mix of relief and frustration that Jaren's expertise was essential. Swallowing her pride, she extended her hand to assist. Together they worked in silence for a time. The station around them buzzed with life, humans and aliens moving in harmony, yet Liara felt isolated. Every time she looked at Jaren, she remembered her vow, never to bond with a human. And yet, with each shared effort, the weight of that vow seemed lighter, not because she wanted it to, but because survival demanded it. Finally, the conduit was in place. Jaren activated the ship's systems and the engines hummed to life. Liara exhaled, a small private relief, but she kept her expression guarded. "Thank you," she said quietly. "This doesn't change anything." Jaren smiled faintly. "I don't need it to. Just stay alive, princess, that's enough." His words were simple, human in their honesty. They held no hidden agenda, no expectation, just a focus on the immediate need: survival. Liara found herself studying him, noticing the way he moved, the careful way he measured every action, the confidence that came from experience. Perhaps humans were not as reckless as her people had warned. Perhaps there was more to them. Before she could dwell further, a new alarm sounded. Liara's heart sank. The rival faction had tracked her to the station. Security warnings flashed, and she could see patrol drones activating in the distance. The enemy was relentless. They would not stop until she was captured, or worse. Jaren did not hesitate. "We have to move now," he said, grabbing a portable shield generator. "I can get you out, but we need to move fast." Liara nodded, the old pride in her chest clashing with the undeniable truth. She could not escape alone. She followed Jaren through the twisting corridors of the station, her eyes alert to every shadow, every potential threat. The hum of the station felt tense now, like a living heartbeat warning them of danger. They reached a docking bay where a small shuttle waited. Jaren pushed her inside, checking the controls quickly. "We have limited time. The enemy is already inside the station. Hold on." The shuttle launched just as alarms echoed through the bay. Liara felt the familiar thrill of speed mixed with fear. Her body tensed, but she trusted Jaren's handling of the vessel. Every maneuver was precise, every calculation perfect. For the first time she allowed herself a small recognition. Huns were capable. They could be clever, brave. The barren planet beneath them was quiet, its rocky surface stretching endlessly under the faint light of a distant sun. Princess Liara and Captain Jaren stood outside the shuttle, their eyes scanning the horizon. For the first time since her escape, Liara allowed herself to feel a cautious sense of safety. Yet she knew this was only temporary. Her people's enemies were relentless, and the sanctuary of loyal Zifferin she sought lay across dangerous, uncharted space. Jaren was already checking the shuttle's systems, his hands moving with precision and experience. Liara watched him silently, noticing again how calm and methodical he remained, even after hours of dodging enemy attacks. She had seen courage in her own people, but there was something about humans, this human, that combined cleverness, adaptability, and fearlessness in a way she had never expected. "We can make it to the sanctuary if we plot a careful course," Jaren said, finally looking up. "But the path isn't easy. There are asteroid fields, ion storms, and some uncharted territories that could hide predators. Or worse." Liara nodded, her mind already calculating. Her alien instincts allowed her to sense subtle changes in the environment, but she lacked the human experience of improvisation in unpredictable situations. Together they formed a cautious balance, her instincts, his strategy. It was the first real test of cooperation, and she felt the weight of it deeply. They boarded the shuttle and lifted off. The engines hummed smoothly, and the stars stretched into lines as they entered faster than light travel. The universe outside was vast and silent, yet the danger was ever present. Liara kept her eyes on the navigation screens, tracking every anomaly, while Jaren monitored systems and communications. The first real obstacle came sooner than expected. An asteroid field loomed ahead, massive rocks tumbling through space at terrifying speeds. Liara's heart quickened. She had trained for combat and survival, but maneuvering a shuttle through a live asteroid field was different from any simulation. Jaren's voice cut through the tense silence. "Hold on tight. We'll need to weave between them. I'll guide us, but I'll need your focus to anticipate the gravitation changes." Liara's fingers moved instinctively over the controls. She adjusted trajectory vectors, calculated angles, and predicted momentum shifts. Jaren coordinated with her, his calm voice directing her, his experience guiding the shuttle. Together they danced through the asteroid field, dodging collisions by mere meters. When they cleared it, Liara exhaled, feeling a thrill she had never expected. You are quite skilled," she said, her voice betraying a hint of awe. Jaren shrugged with a grin. "Humans survive a lot of impossible situations. You'd be surprised what we can do with quick thinking." Her pride flared briefly. She would never admit it openly, but she had begun to appreciate human resourcefulness. It was different from Zypherin's skill, less elegant perhaps, but adaptable and relentless. Their journey continued, but danger was never far. Next came an ion storm, a swirling mass of charged particles capable of disabling electronics and causing fatal malfunctions. Liara and Jaren worked in tandem again. Her alien senses detected the shifting energy fields before the instruments could. and she guided the shuttle accordingly. Jaren stabilized the engines, adjusting power flow and shielding. The storm battered them for hours, yet neither wavered. Their trust, built slowly through shared effort and survival, began to strengthen. Liara found herself noticing small things about Jaren: how he maintained focus under pressure, how he anticipated problems, and how he remained calm even when their lives were at risk. She had promised herself never to bond with a human, yet the reality of their cooperation planted a seed of understanding that could not be ignored. As the storm cleared, the shuttle drifted into uncharted space, a region where no charts existed and no communications reached. Liara's eyes scanned the darkness, alert for any signs of danger. It was then that she saw the first sign of an alien predator, a massive, shadowy creature moving through the void, drawn by the shuttle's energy signature. Jaren's hands flew over the controls. "Hold tight. This is not a friendly neighbor." Liara's instincts kicked in. She felt the creature's presence, its size, its speed, and its intent. Working with Jaren, she calculated a trajectory that would evade the predator while keeping their engines safe. Together, they performed a daring maneuver, weaving through invisible currents in space and using the shuttle's energy emissions to confuse the creature. After tense minutes that felt like hours, the predator lost interest, disappearing into the darkness. Liara's chest heaved with relief. She glanced at Jaren, who offered a rare smile. "See? Humans can be useful in a fight," he said lightly, though the adrenaline in his eyes was evident. Liara allowed herself a small smile, though it was tinged with caution. "Useful? Yes. But do not assume this changes anything." Jaren chuckled, softly. "I wouldn't dream of it, just survive, that's all I ask." Their journey continued in silence, the shuttle moving steadily toward the sanctuary. The bond between them, though unspoken, was forming through shared struggle. Liara felt a mix of admiration, caution, and something else she could not name. Perhaps it was trust, the fragile, necessary kind that survival demanded. Finally, after days of travel through uncharted space, they glimpsed the hidden sanctuary, a planet surrounded by protective energy fields and cloaked from prying eyes. Its surface dotted with structures that glowed faintly in patterns only Xiphorans could recognize. Liara felt a surge of hope. She had survived the first trials. She had learned to rely on a human, and now the next stage awaited. Yet even as the sanctuary came into view, she knew the challenges were far from over. The rival faction would not give up easily, and the real test of leadership, courage, and collaboration was just beginning. She turned to Jaren, whose eyes reflected the distant stars. "We've come far," he said quietly, "but the hardest part is still ahead." Liara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had escaped death, navigated danger, and learned the first lessons about human resilience. But now she would face choices that would test her pride, her prejudice, and her willingness to embrace a new kind of partnership. As the shuttle descended toward the sanctuary, Liara realized a profound truth. Survival was no longer just about skill or strength. It was about trust, courage, and the willingness to work together, even with someone she had vowed never to rely on. And in that realization, a small spark of hope ignited, one that could change not only her fate, but the fate of her people. The dangerous journey was far from over, but for the first time, Princess Liara felt that she might not face it alone. The sanctuary of Xiphoran loyalists glowed beneath the shuttle, a hidden haven carved into the cliffs of a quiet world. Energy shields shimmered faintly in the sky, protecting the settlement from outside detection. For Princess Liara, the sight brought relief, but also a heavy reminder. Her people were depending on her. When the shuttle landed, a group of Xiphoran guards hurried forward. Their eyes lit up with recognition and they bowed deeply. "Princess Liara, you are alive," one exclaimed. Liara nodded, steady but weary. She stepped out with Jaren following behind. At once the guards tensed, their eyes narrowing at the human. Whispers rippled among them. To see their princess return with a human by her side was unthinkable. "He saved my life," Liara said firmly, silencing the whispers. "He is with me." The loyalists exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. Liara led Jaren into the council chamber, where surviving leaders of her people gathered. The room was dim, lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The elders bowed to her, relief plain in their expressions. "You are our hope." "One," elder said. "With you alive, the throne can be restored, but the rival faction grows stronger. They have located our sanctuary. Soon they will attack." Liara felt her chest tighten. She had feared this. The sanctuary was safe for now, but the enemy would not stop until she was gone. And worse, she was not strong enough alone to lead her people through the coming storm. As the council discussed defenses, one word kept returning: the bond. Liara's heart sank. The Zifferin bond was an ancient ritual, rare, sacred, and powerful. By linking her mind with another, she could gain strength, clarity, and shared instincts. But bonds were meant to be formed only with Zifferins, never with humans. It was unthinkable. Still, the elders pressed. "Princess, the bond is the only way. You must join with another to increase your strength. Only then can you survive the trials to come." Liara stood silent, her mind racing. She had vowed never to bond with a human. It was her most sacred promise. But as she glanced at Jaren, standing quietly at the edge of the chamber, she felt the weight of reality. He had saved her more than once. His courage, his resourcefulness, his calm under fire, they were strengths her people needed. That night, she walked alone to the edge of the sanctuary cliffs. The stars stretched endlessly above her, cold and beautiful. Her heart was torn between pride and survival. Could she truly do what her ancestors forbade? Could she bond with a human? Footsteps approached. Jaren stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "You're troubled," he said softly. Liara's voice was low, almost bitter. "My people want me to bond. Without it, I may not be strong enough to lead them through what is coming. And you don't want to bond. Because of me," Jaren guessed. She turned to him, her eyes shar. The sanctuary's energy shields shimmered faintly above the cliffs, but Liara knew they would not last. Scouts had already confirmed what she feared. The rival faction had discovered their location. A massive fleet was moving through space, preparing to strike. Inside the council chamber, tension filled the air. Elders and guards argued in low voices, their fear plain. Some wanted to flee deeper into the galaxy, while others believed the sanctuary should be defended at all costs. "Princess." Liara stood tall, Jaren beside her. Since the bond, she felt different, stronger, sharper, and more aware. She could sense Jaren's thoughts, his steady determination flowing like a quiet flame beside her own. The connection was strange, yet comforting. It gave her the courage to speak with authority. "We cannot run," she declared. "If we abandon the sanctuary, we abandon our people. The rival faction will only grow stronger. This is where we make our stand." Murmurs filled the chamber. The elders looked uncertain, but Liara continued. "I know many of you doubt the bond I have formed. You see it as forbidden. But I tell you this, it has given me strength. And with Captain Jaren at my side, I believe we can win." Jaren stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Your people are brave. I've seen it. But bravery alone is not enough. You need strategy, flexibility, things humans excel at. Together, with your strength and my experience, we can fight back." His words carried a strange weight. The Zifferins listened, hesitant but hopeful. For generations they had distrusted humans. Yet here stood their princess, bonded to one, declaring him an ally. Preparations began at once. Zifferin engineers reinforced the shields while fighters readied their weapons. Jaren moved among them, teaching quick strategies, how to use the terrain for advantage, how to create traps, how to anticipate enemy maneuvers. At first, many resisted his advice, but soon they saw his methods working in small training skirmishes. Respect grew, cautiously but surely. Liara worked tirelessly, her voice carrying authority. She trained with her guards, her movements precise, her commands sharp. Through the bond, Jaren guided her, offering insights and suggestions. Their connection allowed them to move as one, her instincts blending with his quick thinking. When the enemy fleet finally arrived, the sky above the sanctuary filled with fire. Dark ships descended like a storm, energy cannons blazing against the shields. The ground trembled and fear rippled through the loyalists. But Liara did not falter. She stepped onto the front lines, her voice rising above the chaos. "Hold your ground. This is our home. We will not fall today." Her words, strengthened by the bond, carried more than sound. They carried resolve. The Xiferans felt her determination, her courage, and they rallied. For the first time in many cycles, hope burned brightly in their hearts. The battle began. Enemy forces poured into the valley, armored soldiers moving with ruthless precision. Yet the loyalists, guided by Liara and Jaren, met them head-on. Jaren's strategies turned the battlefield into a trap. Hidden charges detonated, collapsing cliffs on advancing enemies. Narrow paths became choke points where Xiferan warriors struck with deadly accuracy. Through it all, Liara fought at the front. Her alien blade shimmered with energy as she cut through enemy lines. Beside her, Jaren moved with human agility, his quick reflexes surprising even the seasoned warriors. When Liara faltered, Jaren's thoughts steadied her through the bond. When Jaren was in danger, Liara's instincts guided him to safety. The bond made them unstoppable. But the rival faction was powerful, and the battle raged for hours. The shields finally cracked, collapsing in a shower of sparks. Enemy reinforcements flooded the sanctuary, overwhelming the defenses. For a moment, despair threatened to spread. Then Liara acted. She climbed the central tower, her voice echoing across the sanctuary. "Do not give in. We are Xiferans, and we fight for our future. Look beside you. See your brothers, your sisters, your families. Stand together and we will not fall." The loyalists roared in response, their courage reignited. Jaren, linked through the bond, added his strength. His human determination flowed through Liara, amplifying her words. The fighters rallied with renewed energy, charging back into the battle with fearless hearts. The tide turned. What had seemed like defeat became resistance, and resistance became victory. The rival faction faltered under the combined might of Xiferan discipline and human ingenuity. One by one, their forces broke. At last, the enemy commander himself advanced, towering in dark armor. He challenged Liara directly, his voice filled with scorn. "You are weak, princess. You bonded with a human. You shame your people." Liara stood firm, Jaren at her side. "You are wrong. This bond is not shame, it is strength." The duel began. The commander's blows were heavy, relentless. But Liara anticipated them, guided by Jaren's quick calculations through the bond. Together they outmaneuvered the enemy, striking with precision. At the final moment, Liara's blade found its mark, and the commander fell. Silence spread across the battlefield. Then cheers erupted. The rival soldiers, leaderless, scattered into retreat. The sanctuary was saved. Exhausted but unbroken, Liara stood at the center of her people. Her blade was lowered, her breath heavy, but her eyes burned with victory. Jaren stood beside her, steady as always, his presence a silent promise of strength. The loyalists surrounded them, their voices filled with awe. "The princess has triumphed. The bond has brought us victory." For the first time there was no doubt, no hesitation. The forbidden bond was now a symbol of survival, of hope, and of unity. Liara raised her hand, her voice carrying over the crowd. "This is only the beginning. We will rebuild, we will rise, and we will no longer fear what is different. Today we proved that strength comes not from separation, but from unity." The loyalists cheered, their voices echoing across the sanctuary. Cliffs, As the stars shone above, Liara and Jaren exchanged a silent glance. The battle had been won, but the war was not yet over. Still, in that moment, they both knew. Together, they could face anything. The smoke of battle had faded, leaving the sanctuary scarred but standing. The cliffs still held their quiet strength, and the voices of the loyalists carried in the cool, night air. Victory had been claimed, but Princess Liara knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning of something greater. She stood at the highest balcony of the sanctuary's central tower, looking over her people. Lanterns glowed across the courtyards where survivors gathered, tending to the wounded and repairing broken structures. The rival forces had been driven away, but there was no time for pride. The war might return. Beside her, Jaren leaned against the balcony rail, arms folded. His face was calm, but his eyes studied every corner of the sanctuary, as if still preparing for another battle. Liara felt the same through their bond, his alertness, his concern, and beneath it his quiet determination. "They follow you now," Jaren said softly. "Your people believe in you." Liara nodded. "They believe because we gave them victory. But belief fades quickly if not given purpose. If I am to lead, I must do more than win battles. I must rebuild trust. Trust between my people, and perhaps one day, trust between species." Her words carried weight. For generations, the Xiferans had treated humans as outsiders, dangerous and unworthy of bonds. And yet, here stood a princess, alive because of one. The following days were filled with work. Council meetings stretched long into the nights, and arguments rose about the future. Some elders still whispered against the bond, claiming it was unnatural. Others, younger and inspired by victory, spoke in favor of change. Liara listened to all voices, but when the debates grew heated, she stood and spoke with the strength of her bond behind her. "Our people survived because of unity," she declared in the council hall. "Not just Zephyran unity, but something greater. A union of what we are with what others can offer. This is not weakness. This is our future." Her voice silenced the chamber. Even those who doubted could not deny the truth. Meanwhile, Jaren worked closely with the warriors and engineers. He helped them design new defenses, teaching them human tactics but adapting them to Zephyran strength. The warriors, once suspicious of him, now sought his guidance eagerly. They learned to fight with both discipline and creativity, combining the two worlds into something neither could achieve alone. Liara often watched him, sensing his quiet patience. He never demanded respect, yet it grew around him naturally. Through the bond, she felt his pride when a strategy succeeded, his relief when her people began to accept him, and his constant awareness of her presence. Weeks passed. The sanctuary grew stronger. Walls repaired, shields restored, and the people united in purpose. The rival faction had scattered after their defeat, but Liara knew they would regroup. A larger storm might one day come. She could not let her people face it alone, and so she made a bold decision. One evening she called her council, her warriors, and even the citizens into the great courtyard. The lanterns lit their faces. Thousands gathered to hear their princess speak. Jaren stood at her side, silent but strong. "My people," Liara began, her voice echoing across the stone walls. "We have lived in fear of change. We feared what was different, what we did not understand. For too long that fear kept us apart from others, especially humans. But fear is not the path to survival. Courage is. Unity is. The bond I share with Captain Jaren is proof of that truth.